What happens when a waitress, earning minimum wage at one of the most expensive restaurants in the world, is publicly humiliated by a billionaire? He orders her to speak English in her own place of work. But he has no idea who he's talking to. He thinks she's a nobody, a ghost, someone invisible. What he doesn't know is that this invisible woman is the one who secretly cost him over $1 billion 2 years ago. And tonight, she's about to do it again. This isn't a story about a waitress getting revenge. This is a story about a hidden queen taking back her throne. The restaurant was called Aurelia. It wasn't just a place to eat. It was a cathedral of wealth, a hushed, velvet-lined stage where the titans of New York City performed their power. Located in a discreet, unmarked brownstone just off Park Avenue, Aurelia didn't have a sign. It didn't need one. If you had to ask where it was, you couldn't afford to be there. The waitlist for a reservation was 3 years long, unless, of course, you were a household name. Inside, the air smelled like old money and truffles. The lighting was a soft, buttery gold, designed to make everyone look 10 years younger and $1 million richer. Waiters, dressed in custom-tailored Tom Ford tuxedos, moved with the silent, choreographed grace of ballet dancers. They didn't just serve food, they anticipated desires. And then there was Elara. To the clientele, she was just part of the exquisite scenery. Tall, poised, with dark hair pulled back into a severe bun, her face was pleasant but forgettable. She wore the standard uniform, a sleek black dress that was modest to the point of being monastic. She was efficient, silent, and invisible. She was exactly what Aurelia demanded of its staff, a ghost. But Elara was not a ghost. She was a fugitive, hiding in plain sight. Her life was a study in grim contrasts. By night, she poured $4,000 bottles of Chateau Margaux for hedge fund managers and tech moguls. By day, she returned to her shoebox apartment in a pre-war walk-up in Queens, where the paint peeled and the radiator hissed with angry, metallic breaths. She would sit at her rickety kitchen table, eating a bowl of instant ramen, and stare at the wall. This life was her penance. This was her hiding place. 3 years ago, her name wasn't Elara. It was Dr. Elara Vance. She had been a different person then, a prodigy, a rising star, a PhD in forensic linguistics from Oxford by 24. She wasn't just fluent in languages. She understood their bones, their DNA. She could spot a lie in German, find a hidden loophole in Japanese, and trace the origin of an anonymous threat by the specific dialect of French it used. This talent had earned her a coveted 6-figure position at Horizon Global Partners, one of the most ruthless private equity firms in the world. Her job was to analyze the communications of rival companies during hostile takeovers. She read their emails, their internal memos, their legal filings, and she found the cultural nuances, the hidden meanings that their lawyers missed. She had been brilliant, she had been valued, and she had been naive. Elara was the one who found the Helios file. It was a deal with a massive German conglomerate. Everyone at Horizon was celebrating the impending merger. But Elara, digging through terabytes of data, found something else. It was a ghost ledger, a series of transactions hidden in coded language, a blend of archaic Mandarin financial terms and obscure German legal phrasing. It wasn't just fraud. It was a vast, international money laundering operation, siphoning billions of dollars through shell companies in Panama and Macau. She did what she thought was right. She followed the company's internal ethics guidelines. She reported it to her direct superior, a managing partner named Mark Corrigan. He had smiled, thanked her for her diligence, and told her, You've done well, Vance. Leave this with me. 2 days later, she was locked out of her computer. When she arrived at the office, her keycard was declined. Security guards, men who had smiled at her every morning, escorted her from the building. She was told her position had been eliminated due to restructuring. She went to the press, anonymously. She gave the entire Helios file to a contact at the Financial Times. The resulting explosion was catastrophic. The Helios deal collapsed overnight. Horizon Global Partners lost $12 billion in valuation. The German conglomerate was shattered. The SEC launched an investigation. Mark Corrigan was indicted. But the true beneficiary, the name she never saw, but who was the ultimate destination for the laundered money, was never caught. He was a silent partner, a shadow who controlled the strings. He was untouched, but he had lost a fortune. Elara, however, was not untouched. Though she was an anonymous whistleblower, the financial world is small. Corrigan, facing federal prison, made sure her name was leaked. Suddenly, Dr. Elara Vance was a pariah. She was blacklisted from every financial and linguistic firm in the world. Worse, she started receiving threats. Subtle at first, a dead flower left on her doorstep, a man in a dark suit watching her apartment. Her academic credentials were gone. Her identity was toxic. So she vanished. She wiped her digital footprint, changed her appearance, and used her linguistic skills to create a new, simpler identity. Elara, a quiet woman from a small town who just needed a job. Her poise and grace, learned in the boardrooms of power, were mistaken for simple, good training. Aurelia's maître d', a terrifyingly precise man named Julian, had hired her on the spot. "You have the right. Silence," he'd said. For 2 years, she had maintained that silence. She served the very people she used to be, the people who had destroyed her. She kept her head down, saved her money, and died a little more each day. The silence was her shield. Tonight, that shield was about to shatter. Tuesday nights at Aurelia were Titan nights. The restaurant, by some unspoken agreement, was the chosen battleground for the old money establishment and the new money tech disruptors. It was a night of quiet, brutal posturing. Elara was in the middle of a complex service for Table 7, a family of venture capitalists, when Julian, the maître d', touched her elbow. His touch was electric, a warning. "Table 12, he whispered, his voice barely a breath. "Priority." Elara's eyes flickered to Table 12, the best table in the house. It was a secluded alcove, shielded by a massive display of white orchids, offering a panoramic view of the main dining room while remaining in relative privacy. And sitting there, as if he owned the very air, was Arthur Blackstone. Elara's stomach tightened. Arthur Blackstone was not just a billionaire. He was a force of nature, a corporate raider who had built an empire, Blackstone Holdings, on the bones of failed companies. He was a legend, a monster, a self-made man who believed that self-reliance was the only virtue and that any form of weakness was a moral failing. He was famous for his hostile takeovers, his public tirades, and his utter contempt for service. He was seated with a younger man, a sycophant named Thomas, who clearly worked for him and was nodding at everything Blackstone said. "He asked for you specifically, Elara," Julian said, his face pale. He said, "Send me the one who doesn't smile. Do not make a mistake." Elara's blood ran cold. "He asked for me? It was a deviation from the pattern. It was dangerous." She smoothed her apron, took a deep breath, and glided toward the table. "Good evening, gentlemen," she said, her voice a perfect neutral monotone. "Welcome to Aurelia. May I offer you a drink to begin? Perhaps a bottle of the Elonine Dom Perignon?" Blackstone didn't even look up from his phone. He was a man in his late 60s, but he vibrated with a dangerous, coiled energy. His suit was a dark, severe charcoal. His white hair was cropped short, and his eyes were the color of a frozen lake. "Water," he grunted. "Still, no ice." "And for you, sir?" Ilara asked, turning to the younger man. "I'll have the same. Thank you," Thomas said, offering her a nervous, apologetic smile. Blackstone scoffed, finally pocketing his phone. "Don't thank her, Thomas. She's being paid to be here. It's a transaction. Don't muddy it with fake sentiment." Thomas flushed, looking down at his lap. Ilara remained perfectly still. Her training held. "Very good, sir. I will return with your water." As she turned, Blackstone's voice cut through the air, sharp as a razor. "And bring the bread. I'm not waiting 10 minutes for a carb." Ilara paused, inclined her head fractionally, and left. When she returned with the water and the bread service, Blackstone was in the middle of a tirade. "And the entire European division is incompetent," he was saying, his voice rising just enough to be audible to the nearby tables. "They're lazy. They take 8 weeks of vacation. They're soft. They've forgotten how to win." He tore a piece of sourdough in half with unnecessary violence. "That's the problem with the world today, Thomas. Everyone's soft. Everyone's entitled. Everyone's looking for a handout, a safe space. Nobody wants to do the hard work. Nobody wants to fight." He finally looked at Ilara, his eyes scanning her. It wasn't a human gaze. It was an assessment. He was calculating her cost, her worth, her utility. She felt like a piece of furniture. "You," he said. "Sir?" Ilara responded, her voice calm. "You're new. I haven't seen you before." "I have been with Aurelia for 2 years, sir." 2 years. He chewed his bread. "And you're still just a waitress. What's your goal? What's your 5-year plan? Or is this it? Is this the summit of your ambition, carrying plates for people like me?" Ilara's mask did not slip. Inside, her mind was screaming, but on the outside, she was porcelain. "My ambition is to provide you with excellent service tonight, sir. Are you ready to order?" Blackstone laughed, a dry, barking sound. "No ambition? See, Thomas? This is what I'm talking about. A whole generation of ghosts. Pathetic." He waved a dismissive hand. "Fine, I'll have the steak. Rare. If the chef cooks it a second past rare, I'm sending it back. And you," he pointed at Thomas, "you'll have the salmon. You need to lose weight." "Yes, Mr. Blackstone. The salmon sounds excellent," Thomas stammered. "I'll put the order in immediately," Ilara said, turning to leave. This was her escape. She was just a few feet away from the alcove when the incident happened. Marco, a young busboy who was new and terrified of the clientele, was clearing a nearby table. He was stacking plates, his hands shaking when he stumbled. A single empty wine glass slipped from his tray. It didn't break. It just rolled, hitting the leg of Blackstone's chair with a quiet clink. Marco froze, his face draining of all color. Blackstone looked down at the glass, then up at Marco, his expression one of pure, unadulterated disgust. "You clumsy oaf!" Blackstone hissed. "Are you blind? You nearly spilled on my $5,000 suit." I'm sorry, sir. So sorry," Marco stammered, his English thick with a heavy Spanish accent. He bent to retrieve the glass. "Get away from me," Blackstone snapped. "Don't touch it. Go get someone who knows what they're doing." Marco looked like he was about to cry. He was just a kid, working 2 jobs to support his family. Ilara saw the tremor in his hands. She saw the panic in his eyes. And something inside her, the part of her she had buried for 2 years, just broke. She stepped between Marco and the table. She looked at the boy, her expression softening for the first time all night, and spoke to him in perfect, gentle Spanish. "Está bien, Marco," she said, her voice quiet and melodic. "No te preocupes. Recoge el vaso con calma y ve a la cocina. Yo me encargo." "It's okay, Marco. Don't worry. Pick up the glass calmly and go to the kitchen. I'll handle this." Marco looked at her, stunned, and nodded. He grabbed the glass and fled. Ilara turned back to the table. Blackstone's face was dark purple. He was incandescent with rage. He stood up slowly, the motion full of menace. His voice was dangerously low. "What? Did you just say?" Ilara met his gaze. "I was reassuring the staff, sir." "I don't care," Blackstone roared, slamming his hand on the table. The water glasses jumped. The entire restaurant, a room that hadn't heard a raised voice in a decade, went utterly silent. "This is America," Arthur Blackstone bellowed, pointing a finger in Ilara's face. "My father came here with nothing and built an empire. He learned the language. He learned the rules. I will not be in a restaurant of this caliber and be subjected to that. While you are on my time, serving my table, you will speak English. Do you understand me?" The silence in the room was a living thing. It was heavy, suffocating. Julian, the maître d', was already moving, his face ashen, ready to fire Ilara on the spot. Thomas looked like he wanted to be swallowed by the floor. Ilara stood still. She looked at the finger pointing at her. She looked at the veins bulging in Arthur Blackstone's neck. She looked at the entire hushed room staring at her, a room full of the most powerful people in the world, all of them watching the invisible waitress be torn apart. She had 2 years of pent-up rage, 2 years of being a ghost, 2 years of serving men who were half as smart and 10 times as cruel. She took a slow, deliberate breath, and she made a choice. When Ilara finally spoke, her voice was not the quiet, neutral monotone of a waitress. It was crisp, clear, and cut through the silence like a diamond blade. It was also in perfect, unaccented, received pronunciation. The Queen's English. "Of course, sir," she began, her tone icy and immaculate. "I would be more than happy to speak English. My deepest apologies if my attempts to de-escalate a minor situation with a terrified member of the staff, in his native tongue, caused you such profound distress." Blackstone was taken aback. This was not the stammering apology he expected. The sheer, uncut audacity of her sarcasm stunned him. Thomas, the assistant, choked on his water. "You're insolent," Blackstone stammered, his rage momentarily short-circuited by confusion. Ilara pressed her advantage. She turned to the sommelier, an older Frenchman named Luc, who was hovering nervously nearby. She switched to flawless, rapid-fire French, her tone now that of a CEO addressing a subordinate. "Luc, s'il vous plaît," she commanded. "Apportez à Monsieur Blackstone une bouteille de l'Ermitage La Chapelle de 68. Il semble qu'il ait besoin de quelque chose d'aussi dur et inflexible que lui-même pour se calmer. Look, please, bring Mr. Blackstone a bottle of the 78 Hermitage La Chapelle. It seems he needs something as hard and inflexible as himself to calm down." Luke's eyes widened. He was one of the few people who knew Ilara was fluent, but he'd never seen this. He bowed slightly and hurried away, a ghost of a smile on his face. Blackstone's eyes narrowed. He didn't speak French, but he understood tone. He knew he was being insulted. "What did you say? What was that?" Ilara turned back to him. She gave him a bright, cold smile and shifted languages again, this time to perfect, academic German. "Ich habe lediglich den Sommelier angewiesen, Ihnen einen Wein zu bringen, der Ihrer beeindruckenden Persönlichkeit entspricht," she said, her articulation sharp. "Wissen Sie, Arroganz ist oft nur die Rüstung, die die Unsicherheit trägt. Ein lauter Hund bellt, aber er beißt selten. I merely instructed the sommelier to bring you a wine worthy of your impressive personality. You know, arrogance is often just the armor that insecurity wears. A loud dog barks, but it rarely bites. The man at the table next to Blackstone, a quiet man who happened to be a German steel magnate, let out a sharp, surprised laugh and covered it with a cough. Blackstone was now vibrating with fury. You think you're clever? You think you can mock me? Sir, I would never mock a guest, Ilara said, her voice dripping with insincere courtesy. She leaned in, as if to share a secret, and her voice dropped into the fluid, passionate cadence of Italian. Signore, she whispered, her voice suddenly warm and conspiratorial, like a mafia lawyer. Permetta che le dia un consiglio. Le persone come lei, che urlano così forte, di solito hanno qualcosa da nascondere. Un vero re non ha bisogno di dire a tutti che è il re. Sir, allow me to give you some advice. People like you, who yell so loudly, usually have something to hide. A true king doesn't need to tell everyone he's the king. This was too much. Blackstone was sputtering, his face a mask of purple rage. You're fired, he bellowed. Julian, get this thing out of my sight. Fired! Ilara didn't flinch. She simply stood straight, her hands clasped behind her back. She looked at Thomas, the poor, terrified assistant, and spoke for the fifth and final time in the gentle, sibilant Spanish she had used with Marco. "E para usted, senor," she said softly. "I'm very sorry you had to sit through this. He's a bully. You should update your resume. The job market is actually quite strong right now for financial analysts." And then, switching back to the perfect, cutting English that started it all, she looked directly into Arthur Blackstone's eyes. "To be clear, sir, I speak 5 languages fluently. I was a guest lecturer at Heidelberg on linguistic theory, and I hold a doctorate from Oxford. The only reason I am not speaking a 6th is because my ancient Latin is a bit rusty, and I doubt you'd appreciate a lengthy quote from Marcus Aurelius on the virtue of humility." She gave him a tiny, dismissive smile. "I am not staff. I am Dr. Ilara Vance. And I am not fired, Mr. Blackstone. I quit." She unclipped her name tag, Ilara, from her dress. She placed it gently on the table, right next to his bread plate. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have 2 years of my life to reclaim. Good evening." She turned, not in a hurry, but with the unbothered, regal pace of someone who had just won a war. She walked past the shell-shocked maître d', past the stunned and silent patrons, through the velvet-lined doors of the kitchen, and out the back exit into the cold New York night, leaving behind a crater of pure silence and the bewildered, apoplectic fury of Arthur Blackstone. The ghost had just become a person, and the game had just begun. The aftermath in Aurelia was pandemonium. Arthur Blackstone was, for the first time in his public life, speechless. He was a shark, and this waitress had just pulled his teeth, one by one, in front of an audience. "Julian!" he finally roared. "Get over here!" Julian, the maître d', scurried to the table, his face the color of old parchment. "Mr. Blackstone, I cannot. I will have her blacklisted from every—" "Shut up!" Blackstone snapped. "Who was that?" "Ilara. Just Ilara, sir. She had no last name on her application. She passed all our background checks. We thought she was just a waitress," Blackstone finished, his voice dangerously quiet now. The rage was gone, replaced by something far more terrifying. Calculation. No waitress, no person, learns to speak like that, to think like that, just to serve me a steak. He looked at Thomas. "Get Silas on the phone. Now." Thomas fumbled for his phone, his hands shaking. Silas was the head of Blackstone's personal security and problem-solving division. He was an ex-Mossad operative, and he found things. He found everything. "Sir, Silas is on," Thomas said, holding out the phone. Blackstone grabbed it. "Silas, I'm at Aurelia. A waitress just quit. Her first name is Elara. She's tall, dark hair, probably in her late 20s. She speaks English, French, German, Italian, and Spanish, all flawlessly. She said her name was Dr. Elara Vance, and she mentioned Oxford. I want to know who she is. I want to know where she lives. I want to know what she ate for breakfast. You have 1 hour." He hung up. He looked at the name tag on the table. Elara. The meal, sir, is on the house," Julian stammered. "Of course it is," Blackstone said, standing up. "Thomas, we're leaving." "But the steak, sir." "I've lost my appetite." Blackstone walked out of the restaurant, not with the bluster he had entered with, but with a cold, focused intensity. He wasn't just humiliated, he was intrigued. He hadn't been challenged like that in 30 years. He had just been publicly dissected by an invisible woman. And Arthur Blackstone did not tolerate mysteries in his own backyard. He would find this Dr. Vance, and he would understand her. Meanwhile, Elara was walking. She walked for miles, adrenaline singing in her veins. She had just detonated her life, again. The fragile safety of her anonymity was gone. Blackstone was not a man who let things go. He would search for her. And when he found her, what? She finally stopped in a small park, her breath pluming in the cold. The fear was starting to set in, pushing past the triumphant adrenaline. She had been stupid. She had let her pride, her buried, wounded ego, speak for her. She had put a target on her back. She had $4,300 in her bank account. That was it. That was her entire life, saved from 2 years of tips. It wouldn't last a month in New York. She had to run. Again. New city. New name. New life. The thought of it, of becoming someone even smaller, even more invisible, made her feel sick. She got on the subway, her mind racing. She had to go back to her apartment, grab her emergency bag, which held her few remaining real documents, and her backup cash, and get to a bus station. As she walked up the steps to her Queens apartment building, the sense of being watched prickled her neck. She scanned the dark street. Nothing. A black sedan was parked across the road, but it was just a standard Maybach, not unusual for this part of town, where drivers often waited. She fumbled with her keys, her hands shaking. She got inside, triple-locked the door, and leaned against it, her heart hammering. She ran to her closet, pulling out a hidden duffel bag. She was stuffing her few possessions into it when her phone buzzed. It was a restricted number. She never answered restricted numbers. It buzzed again, and again. On the 5th buzz, a text message came through. From the same restricted number. It contained only 3 words. "We need to talk." She dropped the phone. Another text came through immediately. "Don't run, Dr. Vance. It's pointless." And a third text, a second later. "Look out your window." Her blood turned to ice. She crept to the window and peered through the blinds. The black Maybach was still there. But now, a rear window was rolling down. A man was sitting in the back seat, illuminated by the glow of his phone. It was Arthur Blackstone. He looked up, straight at her window, as if he could see her through the blinds. He smiled. And then he texted again. "Come outside, or Silas will come up. I'd prefer to be civil." Elara knew she had no choice. Running was no longer an option. He had found her. In less than an hour, he had found her. The ghost was caught. She took a deep breath. She wasn't Dr. Vance, the victim, anymore. She was the woman who had shut down Aurelia. She grabbed her thin jacket, walked out of her apartment, and descended the stairs to face the man who was, in all likelihood, there to destroy her. This is the part of the story where we have to go back. To understand what happens next, you have to understand exactly what Ilara did, and exactly who Arthur Blackstone is. Ilara's analysis of the Helios file had been her masterpiece. She hadn't just found a few bad transactions. She had uncovered the architecture of a global crime. The ghost ledger wasn't just in Mandarin and German, it was a complex linguistic puzzle. The criminals had used keigo, the formal, honorific Japanese, to draft legal clauses that seemed respectful, but actually contained loopholes. They had used Swiss-German banking idioms to mask fund transfers. Ilara had seen the pattern. She had followed the money, and it all led to a single, unnamed, silent partner. This partner was meticulous. His tracks were covered. But Ilara was better. She found a single, translated contract, a sloppy one, done by a junior associate, where a specific, archaic German phrase for contingency profit was mistranslated. That mistranslation was the key. It created a digital breadcrumb. And Ilara followed it. She discovered that the man who had ordered the entire Helios fraud, the man who was set to personally make $3 billion from the laundered funds, was not her boss, Mark Corrigan. Corrigan was just a lieutenant. The true beneficiary, the shadow at the top, was the silent partner in Horizon Global Partners, Arthur Blackstone. When Ilara leaked the file to the Financial Times, she hadn't just blown up a deal. She had targeted Arthur Blackstone. The FT article, however, didn't have enough to print his name. The legal links were too tenuous, protected by layers of shell companies. So, the paper had only named Corrigan and the firm. Corrigan went down. The firm collapsed. And Arthur Blackstone, protected by his army of lawyers, escaped. But he had not escaped unharmed. He had lost $1.2 billion in projected and very real profit. The SEC had put him on a watch list. His reputation was, for the first time, tainted. He never knew who the whistleblower was. The FT protected its source. All he knew was that some low-level anonymous analyst at Horizon had, with a single data file, cost him a fortune. He had spent 2 years and millions of dollars trying to find that person. And now he had. She had been standing 10 feet away from him, offering him a wine list. This context is vital. Because when Ilara walked out of her apartment building and approached the Maybach, she wasn't just approaching an arrogant billionaire she had insulted. She was approaching the criminal she had exposed, the man who had, indirectly, ruined her life, and the man who, she assumed, now knew exactly who she was and was here to finish the job. The car door clicked open. "Get in, Dr. Vance," Blackstone's voice commanded from the darkness. She slid onto the plush leather seat. The interior was silent, insulated from the city noise. It smelled like his restaurant, old money and power. Silas was in the driver's seat, a man with no expression and eyes that saw everything. Blackstone was opposite her, a glass of what looked like scotch in his hand. "That was quite a performance tonight," Blackstone said, his voice casual. "I aim to please," Ilara said, her voice shaking only slightly. "Are you here to kill me, or just threaten me?" Blackstone actually laughed. "Kill you? Dr. Vance, I'm a corporate raider, not a cartel boss. And threatening you? Well, I have a feeling that would be a complete waste of my time." He took a sip of his drink. "When Silas ran your face, I expected to find you were a journalist undercover, or perhaps corporate espionage from a rival. I have many. And then he found your name, Dr. Ilara Vance, Oxford, Horizon Global Partners, the Helios file." He leaned forward, and the smile was gone. His eyes were arctic. "You," he said, "cost me $1.2 billion. Ilara's heart hammered. This was it. "You're a criminal," she said, her voice low. "It was stolen money. You should be in prison." "Prison?" Blackstone scoffed. "Prison is for people who get caught. People like Mark Corrigan. People who are sloppy. I was never sloppy. My lawyers are artists. My firewalls are fortresses. And yet, you, a 25-year-old linguist, you walked right through the front door." He stared at her, and the look in his eyes wasn't anger. It was awe. "For 2 years I have searched for the person who did this," he said. "I imagined some grizzled financial veteran, some rival CEO. But it was you, hiding as a waitress, the sheer, beautiful, magnificent audacity of it, serving me bread. It's Shakespearean." Ilara was lost. This was not the confrontation she had expected. "So what now?" she asked. "You've found me. You've won. You're going to expose me, ruin what's left of my life. Go ahead. Expose you." Blackstone leaned back. "Dr. Vance, you've misunderstood the situation entirely. I'm not here to punish you. I'm here to hire you." Ilara stared at him. The words hung in the silent, opulent car, seeming to make no sense. "Hire me," she repeated, her voice flat. "You want to hire the woman who cost you $1 billion. "Who cost me $1 billion? Blackstone corrected, a sharp edge to his voice. "No, you're the only person who was smart enough to find $1 billion. There's a difference. I don't respect many people, Dr. Vance. I respect money, I respect power, and I respect intelligence. You are a nuclear weapon of intelligence." He set his glass down. "I am in a very difficult position, and the kind of unique, creative, and frankly vicious talent you possess is exactly what I require." "You have a company full of analysts," Ilara said, stalling. "Blackstone Holdings has the best." "I have idiots," Blackstone snapped, his composure breaking for a second. "I have Ivy League MBAs who can't think their way out of a paper bag. They run algorithms. They look at spreadsheets. They can't see the human element. They can't see the lies." He calmed himself. "You can. You don't just read languages, you read people. You read their intent. That's what you did with the Helios file. You saw the cultural codes. Get to the point, Mr. Blackstone." "The point," he said, "is a man named Damien Frost." Ilara's blood chilled. Damien Frost. Even hiding in a restaurant, she knew that name. Frost was the new king of tech, a Silicon Valley messiah who had built his company, Etheria, from a garage into a $1 trillion data mining empire. He was new money, ruthless, and he was everything Blackstone was not: young, charismatic, and worshipped by the media. "Frost is trying to kill me," Blackstone said simply. "Kill you?" "Metaphorically, though I wouldn't put the literal past him. He's trying for a hostile takeover. Not of one of my companies. Of all of them. He's trying to swallow Blackstone Holdings whole." This was big. This was industry-shaking news. "And he's doing it," Blackstone continued, "by partnering with a Japanese conglomerate. A very old, very traditional firm called Mitsuyama." "The deal is public," Ilara said. "It's a merger. The Wall Street Journal is calling it a partnership of equals." "The Wall Street Journal is run by children," Blackstone sneered. "It's not a merger, it's a consumption. Frost is using Mitsuyama's capital to stage a leveraged buyout, but he's hiding it. He's hiding his leverage, his true position. My teams have been through every file, every SEC filing, every press release. It's clean, it's perfect. But I know he's lying. I can feel it." He leaned in again. "The deal is being negotiated in Tokyo. The contracts are in Japanese. Not just Japanese, but high-level, formal, what my team calls impenetrable legal and financial language. They can't find the loophole. They can't find the poison pill, but you can. Here it was. The offer. You want me, Elara said, to do for you what I did to you. You want me to be your weapon. I want you to be my partner, Blackstone corrected. This isn't a job, it's a war. You help me find the leverage Frost is hiding. You help me save my company. And in return what? First, he said, ticking points off on his finger, your life back. I will have my lawyers file a civil suit against Mark Corrigan for your wrongful termination. I will discover new evidence that you were an ethical employee acting on my behalf. I will clear your name. The blacklisting? It vanishes. By the time we're done, every firm in the world will be begging to hire you. Second, he continued, safety. The people who threatened you after the Helios leak, they were Corrigan's men. Stupid. But they're gone. I, on the other hand, can offer you real protection. Starting with Silas right there. You'll be untouchable. He paused. And third, money. Real money. $10 million. Wired to any account you name. Not when you win. When you start. Elara's mind was reeling. $10 million. Her name cleared. Her life back. Why should I trust you? She whispered. You are the man I exposed. You're a criminal. Yes, I am, Blackstone said, without a trace of shame. And so is Damien Frost. And so is every other person on the Forbes 500 list, one way or another. We just play by different rules. You have to choose, Dr. Vance. Do you want to spend the rest of your life hiding in the shadows, pouring wine for men you despise? Or do you want to come back into the light and be the one holding the bottle? He held out his hand. You have the talent to be a queen. Stop choosing to be a pawn. Work with me. Let's go destroy Damien Frost together. Elara looked at his outstretched hand. It was, she knew, a deal with the devil. This man was the architect of her professional ruin. He was ruthless, immoral, and dangerous. But he was also right. She was tired of hiding. She was tired of being a ghost. Her moral high ground had earned her a tiny apartment in Queens and a future of fear. Blackstone wasn't offering her a job. He was offering her a resurrection. She looked at Silas in the front seat. She looked at the polished, brutal confidence of Arthur Blackstone, and she took his hand. I have terms, she said, her voice hard. Blackstone smiled. I assumed you would. First, 20 million, 10 up front, 10 on completion. Done. Second, I don't work for Blackstone Holdings. I am an independent consultant. I report only to you. My findings are my own. I have full autonomy. Granted. Third, she said, her eyes locking on his. You're going to pay for Marco's college tuition. The bus boy. Blackstone blinked. Of all the demands, this was the one that surprised him. The clumsy one? His name is Marco. He's supporting his family. You humiliated him. You will pay for his full tuition at any university he chooses, and you will write him a personal letter of apology. Blackstone stared at her for a long, hard second. Elara didn't blink. Fine, he grumbled. A ridiculous, sentimental waste of money. But fine. We have a deal? We have a deal, Elara confirmed. Good. Blackstone was all business again. Silas, take us to the penthouse. Dr. Vance will be staying there. Get her a new wardrobe, a new computer, anything she needs. The data room is already set up. The Maybach pulled silently away from the curb. Elara looked back at her dingy apartment building, her old life, one last time. She was a ghost no longer. She was a weapon, and she was about to be aimed. The penthouse was not an apartment. It was a fortress in the sky. It was a triplex at the top of a sleek, black skyscraper in Tribeca that Blackstone owned. It had 360-degree views of the city, a private elevator, and more security than a bank vault. For the next week, this was Ilara's world. Her new uniform was no longer a black dress, but curated racks of cashmere sweaters, silk blouses, and tailored trousers. Her new kitchen was a gleaming, sterile space where a private chef prepared her meals. Her real home, however, was the data room. It was Blackstone's personal war room. One wall was a floor-to-ceiling screen. The servers hummed with a quiet, deadly power. Blackstone had given her what she asked for: complete, unrestricted access. She had every email, every contract, every text message, and every legal filing related to the Frost-Mitsuyama merger. "This is everything my team has," Blackstone had said, standing in the doorway. "They say it's clean. Prove them wrong." For the first 72 hours, Ilara barely slept. She just read. She consumed data. The public-facing documents were, as Blackstone's team had said, immaculate. The language was perfect. It was a standard, friendly merger. But Ilara wasn't looking at the public documents. She was looking at the private ones, the internal communications, the metadata. She focused on the Japanese communications between Damien Frost and the CEO of Mitsuyama, a man named Takeda. "This is the problem," Ilara told Blackstone on the fourth day, pointing to a line of text on the giant screen. Blackstone squinted. "It's Japanese. It's Japanese," Ilara agreed. "But it's not the same Japanese. Look here." She pulled up 2 different emails. "This one is from Takeda's executive team to your team. It's standard, polite, modern business Japanese. But this is from Frost to Takeda, personally. It looks the same to me." "It's not," Ilara said. "It's Keigo, but it's an archaic, almost feudal form of it. Frost is using language that a samurai would use to address his daimyo, his feudal lord. He's being obsequious to the point of self-abasement. He's positioning himself not as a partner, but as a servant." "So?" Blackstone scoffed. "He's a suck-up." "We knew that." "You don't understand," Ilara said, her eyes bright. "In modern Japanese business, this is insulting. Takeda is a modern man. Using this language to him would be like me bowing and scraping and calling you my liege. It's weird. It's wrong. Unless what? Unless it's code. Frost isn't talking to Takeda. He's performing for him. He's signaling something. He's hiding something in plain sight by using language that is so overly respectful, no one's internal translators would ever flag it as aggressive." Ilara started typing, her fingers flying. "Frost is a tech guy. He thinks in code. He's using an archaic language as a form of encryption." She cross-referenced the dates of the Keigo emails with market fluctuations, and she found it. "Here," she said. "Every time Frost uses this specific honorific phrase, itadakimasu, in a financial context which is just wrong, a shell corporation based in Singapore makes a massive purchase of Blackstone Holdings bonds." Blackstone's blood ran cold. "He's buying my debt." "He's not just buying it," Ilara said. "He's shorting it. He's betting on you to fail. No, wait. It's more complicated." She dug deeper. For another 48 hours. She ate at the console. She slept on a couch. She was no longer Ilara. She was the hunter. And then she found the poison pill. It wasn't in the Japanese contracts. It was in the English ones. It was a single clause, buried on page 847 of a supplemental filing. "The Synergy Protocol," Ilara read, her voice trembling with discovery. "It's a clause that states, if the new, merged company, Etheria Mitsuyama, fails to meet a 30% profit growth in the first quarter, an independent auditor will be brought in to assess synergistic failings. That's standard, Blackstone said. It's an escape clause. It looks standard, Ilara said. But look at the definition of independent auditor. It's not the Big Four. It's a tiny boutique firm in Tokyo that's named. A firm called Kaizen Analytics. So, Ilara pulled up the Japanese corporate registry. I ran the name. Kaizen Analytics is a shell company. Its sole board member is a holding company. And that holding company is 100% owned by Damien Frost. Blackstone finally understood. The color drained from his face. It's a trap, he whispered. It's a checkmate, Ilara corrected. Frost knows the 30% growth target is impossible. It's a fantasy. So the merger will fail in its first quarter. The synergy protocol is triggered. Frost's own company, Kaizen Analytics, is brought in as the independent auditor. She pointed to the final, fatal line. And that auditor is given full, unrestricted power to restructure all assets of the new company to ensure future profitability. Restructure all assets, Blackstone repeated. My assets. He's not merging with you, Ilara said. He's not taking you over. He's gutting you. He's going to use this clause to seize control of Blackstone Holdings, break it apart, and sell it for scrap, all while legally acting as the auditor. And he's using Mitsuyama's money to do it. By the time Takeda realizes what's happening, Frost will be in control of both their empires, and you will be left with nothing. Blackstone sank into a chair. He had been played, utterly and completely. How long do we have? He asked. The merger is set to be signed in 48 hours, Ilara said. At the New York Stock Exchange, a big public ceremony. We can't stop it, Blackstone said, his mind racing. If I pull out now, the market panics. My stock collapses. Frost wins anyway. He'll use his short positions to destroy me. So we don't stop it, Ilara said, a slow, cold smile spreading across her face. We use it. Blackstone looked at her. The waitress was gone. The timid analyst was gone. The woman sitting across from him was a general. What do you have in mind, Dr. Vance? Frost thinks he's the only one playing a game, Ilara said. But he made one mistake. He hired a sloppy legal team. Because while I was digging into Kaizen Analytics, I found something else. Something he hid. She pulled up a new set of files. These weren't Japanese. They were German. Frost is a brilliant coder, Ilara said. But he's a terrible linguist. She pointed to a file. Before he went after you, Frost bought a small German data firm to get a foothold in Europe, and he used the same shell company tactic. Only, he used the exact same shell company that Mark Corrigan used in the Helios deal. Blackstone's eyes widened. He's connected to my old fraud? He is, Ilara said, her voice a whisper. He's not just a new rival, Arthur. He's the other silent partner. He and Corrigan were in it together. He was the one who built the Ghost Ledger's architecture. You were the money, but Frost was the brain. Ilara leaned back. He's not just coming for your company. He's coming to clean up the last loose end. He's coming for you, the partner he betrayed. He's trying to erase his own criminal past by destroying yours. Blackstone was silent. He had been living in a world of lies. And he thinks, Ilara said, that the only other person who knew about the Helios file is a disgraced, blacklisted analyst who disappeared 2 years ago. She stood up and walked to the window, looking down at the city. He has no idea, she said, that she's right here, and she has the original, unredacted Helios file. The one that doesn't just name Corrigan. The one that names all the shell companies. She turned. You wanted leverage, Arthur. I've just found it. We don't just have Frost. We have him tied to an SEC-investigated, multi-billion-dollar international fraud. We have both of you. Blackstone stared at her. What do you mean, both of us? Oh, Ilara said, her smile turning to ice. Did you think this was about saving you? You misunderstood. I'm not here to save you, Arthur. I'm here to win. The signing ceremony was to be held in the Grand Hall of the New York Stock Exchange. The room was packed, media from every major financial network, Japanese diplomats, and the entire executive boards of both Blackstone Holdings and Etheria were present. It was a media circus. Damien Frost was at the podium, his charismatic smile flashing for the cameras. He was the man of the hour, the young visionary uniting new tech with old industry. Arthur Blackstone sat to his right, looking, for the first time in his life, like an old man. He looked defeated. The press was eating it up, writing the narrative. The Titan falls, the changing of the guard. Takeda, the CEO of Mitsuyama, sat smiling, unaware of the drama unfolding beneath the surface. Frost finished his speech. And so, with this partnership, we do not just build a new company. We build the future. The room erupted in applause. Frost sat down and slid the ceremonial signature book toward Blackstone. Arthur, he said, just loud enough for the table to hear, his voice dripping with false sympathy. Your legacy is in good hands. Blackstone picked up the pen. His hand was shaking. He looked out at the crowd, and then the main doors of the NYSE hall opened. The room, expecting more security, turned. It was Ilara. She was not wearing a waitress's uniform. She was wearing a blood-red, custom-tailored power suit. Her hair was down, styled in a way that was professional and intimidating. She looked, in every way, like she owned the building. She was flanked by two men. One was Silas. The other was the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. The applause died. A confused murmur rippled through the room. Damien Frost's smile froze. He didn't know this woman, but he knew the face of the U.S. Attorney. Ilara walked calmly, her heels clicking on the marble floor, directly to the main table. She placed a sleek, leather-bound portfolio on the table, right on top of the signature book. Mr. Frost, she said, her voice amplified by the podium microphone she had just casually switched on. My name is Dr. Ilara Vance. You and I have a mutual friend, Mark Corrigan. Damien Frost's face went white, utterly white. I am an independent forensic linguist, Ilara continued, her voice cool and steady, broadcasting to the entire room and the live feed. And I have been retained to analyze the terms of this merger. This is irregular, Takeda said, standing up. Who is this woman? I am the woman, Ilara said, turning to him, who just saved you $50 billion. Mr. Frost, would you care to explain to your new partner the Synergy Protocol? She looked at Frost. Or perhaps you'd prefer to discuss Kaizen Analytics, your privately owned auditing firm designed to liquidate this merger and seize Mr. Takeda's assets? Frost was sputtering. This is slander. This is corporate espionage. Is it? Ilara asked. She nodded to the U.S. Attorney, who stepped forward. Mr. Frost, the attorney said, we have a warrant for your arrest. Not just for this, he gestured to the portfolio, but for your participation, along with Mark Corrigan, in the Horizon Global Partners fraud of 3 years ago. Frost looked at Blackstone, his eyes wild with betrayal. You, he hissed. You did this. Blackstone just looked at him. You came for the king, Damien? You'd better not miss. As federal agents moved in to take a stunned and silent Damien Frost into custody, the room exploded into chaos. Cameras flashed. People were shouting. Ilara picked up the microphone again. The room quieted. She looked at Arthur Blackstone. He was smiling. He thought he had won. "But we are not finished," Ilara said. Blackstone's smile faltered. "The Helios file," Ilara continued, "was, as Mr. Frost knows, a complex fraud with many players. Mr. Frost provided the architecture. Mr. Corrigan provided the access. But a third party provided the capital and the cover." She slid a second portfolio from her briefcase. This one she handed not to the U.S. attorney, but to the lead agent from the SEC who had just entered the room. "Mr. Blackstone," the SEC agent said, "we're going to need you to come with us." Blackstone was frozen. "What? What is this? Ilara, we had a deal." "We did have a deal, Arthur," Ilara said, leaning in close, her voice a whisper just for him. "You promised to clear my name. You promised me my life back, and I'm taking it." You betrayed me!" he roared. "No, Arthur," Ilara said, her voice still a whisper, but now cold as the grave. "I used you, just like you use everyone. I used your money and your access to get the one thing I needed, Damien Frost, and in bringing him down, I brought all the evidence of the Helios deal into the light, evidence that proves my original whistleblower report was correct." She stepped back. "I told you, I'm not here to save you. I'm here to win. You both lost." She turned to the stunned crowd. "My name is Dr. Ilara Vance. As of this morning, I am the largest single creditor of Blackstone Holdings, having anonymously purchased the debt Mr. Frost was trying to short, using the $10 million retainer Mr. Blackstone so generously provided me." She looked at the remaining, shell-shocked board members. "This company is now in receivership, and I will be overseeing its complete restructuring. My analysis shows that you have been partners in a decades-long criminal enterprise. My analysis also shows that I am the only one who can save you from complete dissolution." She looked back at Blackstone, who was being led away, his face a mask of apoplectic fury. He was finally, truly, defeated. Ilara stood at the podium, the sole survivor. She had taken down 2 billionaires, one with new money, one with old. She had exposed a decade of lies. She had been a ghost. She had been a waitress. Now, she was the queen. In the end, it was never about the English. It was never about the French, the German, or the Italian. It was about the language of power. Ilara Vance had been forced to serve men who didn't even see her as human. They thought her silence was weakness, and her service was her limit. But they forgot one thing. The silent ones are the ones who are listening. She didn't just get her life back. She built a new one from the ashes of the men who burned her. She took over Blackstone Holdings, rebranded it, and ran it ethically, turning it into one of the most profitable and transparent firms in the world. And as for Marco, the busboy, he just graduated from Wharton. He's now her new head of acquisitions. This story shows that your current job is not your final destination. The skills you have, the intelligence you hide, that's your real power. What did you think of Ilara's ultimate move? Was it justice, or was it just colder revenge? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you loved this story of drama, twists, and ultimate justice, please make sure to hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to the channel for more true life stories just like this one. We read all your comments, and your support means the world. Thanks for listening.